Greetings and salutations, Afrolytes. It is I, Afromandius, back with another video today. First off, I just want to say I humbly apologize for the 3-week hiatus. I know it's been a minute. I know you guys have been clamoring, begging on your knees. Afro, where are your videos? Oh my God, woe is me. But don't worry, my sweet loving Afrolytes. I am back. Papa Afro is back with another video today. Everything was all right. Just kind of had to get through school, which made it through, thank God. You know, I could put up my noose. There's no need to worry about me. I am squared away. I'm finished with school until January, so I have a lot more free time on my hands, and I got more stuff that I'm planning to do, especially with my Instagram page, you know, so keep you guys updated on that. And with my YouTube channel, everything else is going well with that as well. You know, with family as well, nothing too bad. Obviously, holidays, Turkey Day and whatnot, and, you know, Christmas is around the corner, so I hope you guys have a fantastic holiday. You know, whether it's Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, whatever, doesn't matter to me. You guys are awesome in my books anyway. So let's cut the intro short, and I know you guys are, you know, you've already seen the title, you already know what's going to happen. Put away the pitchforks. I have good news, because this is technically the last Creative Champions video that focuses on Chronicle characters. I gotcha. Yeah, I got you real good. I know you were really excited. Ha, joke's on you. No, I am not done yet. I have a lot more characters I need to focus on, and don't worry, again, there's going to be a lot more baddies coming in the near future, so just be patient with me, and just, you know, focus on what's the task focus on the task that's at hand, and trust the process, okay? I swear you guys are, you know, your patience are going to pay off, especially when this thing takes off. It's going to be immaculate. But, you know, let's get our things out of the way. You get yourself nice and comfortable, grab yourself a nice, sweet, delectable snack, and let Papa Afro serenade you with his salty tunes, or whatever the old heads used to say, right? But let's talk about one of my all-time favorite written characters. I say that about all my characters, but, you know, this one is very unique because, in a sense, she goes on a journey of her own. Basically, she has two opposite sides that, you know, focuses on her, you know, going from one stage to another. She is a completely different person at the end of the story, and I'm going to tell you guys how and why in this video. Today, we're going to be focusing on the queen of the Jiraiyians herself, the wife of David Washington, the big mommy dino herself, Alva Washington. That's right. Give a round of applause to big girl. Woo! Welcome, Alva. Woo! So let's talk about Alva right quick. What is she? Who is she? She is a Jiraiyan. If you guys don't know what that is, I have plenty of videos explaining what are Jiraians. Just go back to my Chronicle video, go back to my first ever video, Welcome to My World, Part 1, where I basically explain that they're just giant dinosaur people. And I'm going to go a little more in depth in this video about how diverse they are, because when it comes to diversity, you know, they're aliens and whatnot, right? But when it comes to Xerxian and the Jiraiya's, they're kind of just, you know, they all, you know, don't want to sound like a drunked up hillbilly with a shotgun in Chinatown or anything, but, you know, they all basically look the same, right? You know, but anywho, it's just that when it comes to diversity and whatnot, other than the elementals, because they're literally elements that take human form, right? The Jiraians are actually a lot more diverse, because there are different types of Jiraians that we're going to be focusing on in this war, right? So I'm going to explain that later on in this video, but basically all you need to know that a Jiraiyan is just a walking, talking, giant dinosaur person. That is all you need to know, right? So that's what a Jiraiyan is. But who is Alva? Where does she come from? Obviously, she came from her parents. Her dad, King Adam, and her mom, we don't necessarily know. Now, that's not to say that I didn't come up with a mother for her. She does have a mother, but you guys know how, like, in popular fiction, especially when it comes to like characters and whatnot, they don't know their dad. But in this story, I actually subverted it. She doesn't know who her mother is. Yes, the one that gave birth to her. It's wild. We don't know if she's alive. We don't know if she's dead. We don't know if she's just one of the Jiraians are running about in this story, right? So, you know, I'm going to leave it up to the viewers and the readers to kind of speculate and figure out who Alva's mom is. I'm obviously not going to tell you, because one, that ruins the fun, and two, it could come up with possible theories in the near future, right? So, you know, basically King Adam fell in love with this Jiraiyan woman, and keep in mind, when I say fall in love, King Adam, he was a he was a dog. Like he never really stayed with one Jiraiyan woman. It was, a one night kind of thing. Pack your stuff up and leave. Don't make me breakfast. I could just take takeout kind of thing, right? So it was more or less, he wasn't a very loyal king. And I mean, let's face it, like when you're the king, you can have everything, right? So he would have concubines, he would have multiple wives, but this Jiraiyan woman was different because this one beat him in a fight. I know, right? Isn't that weird? Most Jiraiyan males find attraction in females who are able to beat them in a fight, especially when it comes to King Adam. So the reason why he fell in love, I guess, with this Jiraiyan woman is because she was able to physically beat him in a fight. Again, we don't know who she is, what she looks like, and neither do the other Jiraians. So it's kind of kept hush-hush on who Alva's true mother was, because if the other Jiraians figured out, then they would want a piece of that pie, if you get what I'm saying, and want to create more Alvas or something like that, right? So, you know, at the end of the day, not even Alva herself knows who her mother is, and that kind of plays a factor later on in her character down the road when she becomes a mother, because she didn't really have that motherly figure in her life, but she learned how to be more compassionate when it came around David, I guess. I'll explain that later on, but that's just kind of where she came from. But what was her childhood like? You know what Spartans are? Yeah, that's basically what her childhood was like. It was training since day one, 24/7, day and night. She ate while she trained, she woke up and trained, and she slept while she trained. Don't ask me how she did it. That's just she is built different, And when Jiraians obviously train at a very young age, they have to go through a process that allows them to step into adulthood. So basically, when they reach around the age of, like, in our years, 14, right? So when they reach around maturity, or when they are about to experience different things with their body, basically they have to go through a trial, right? Trial to adulthood. And so basically they go to this. So Jiraiyan homeworld, they have their homeworld, right? But they have other places that they have, like, conquered and made their own. And I'm going to explain, like, what their, like, culture is, right, in just a minute. But basically, when the Jiraians reach around this age, they go to a planet, and I'm still thinking of a name for this planet, but we'll just call it Planet Trial, right? So basically, this planet is wild because it has different subsectors and, like, terrains that are so vastly different from one another, yet it's contained on this planet, right? So on one part of the planet, it's just made of dense forest that is full with wild creatures and wild predators and prey. On another section of the planet, it's covered in complete another magma, lava kind of thing. If you know what I'm saying, it's like it's literally just volcanoes everywhere. And in another sector, it's full of sand. So basically, when a Jiraiyan is ready and, has everything prepared to want to be an adult, they are sent to the trial planet to prove themselves worthy of becoming an adult. So again, it's varied on, like, whatever they want to do first, but basically the, like, jungle is the considered the easiest section of the, like, maturity, and then it's the lava section, and then it's the desert. I'm gonna explain why that is in a minute. So Alva, when she went through the trial, she had to go to the jungle. She went to the jungle first, and she had to survive 3 days. And keep in mind, the days are very long, so it wasn't like 24 hours. It was almost like 72. So 3 days, 72 hours, it was a really long time. So basically, she had to survive 3 days into the dense jungle and had to make a weapon of her very own, carving it out of stone and stick. And then, after she was done with that, she moved down to the lava sector, and she had to find a piece of magma rock, and she had to break down this magma rock with so much pressure, she had to make a diamond. And keep in mind that, it's not an easy process, so obviously they're gonna, it's gonna take a lot of pressure, and it's gonna take some bleeding in there. And that's what makes this jewelry very special, because this jewelry, not only is it basically pressurized into a diamond, but it's also infused with the Jiraiyan's blood. And it becomes a new material known as Jiraiyanite. And basically, Jiraiyanite is just diamond coated. It's just a blood coated diamond in Jiraiyan blood. So it makes it that much more crucial and integral and important to the Jiraiyan. Basically, when they take it back, they have like a nice little necklace that has it in there and whatnot, and makes them nice and fancy. But then after they get their Jiraiyanite, they go to the desert section and they have to fight a giant death worm. What a step up, am I right? So, after when all of that is said and done, and they get the heart of the giant sandworm. Afro was a giant sandworm. It's a giant sandworm. It's a giant death sandworm that is considered like an apex, like how we consider ourselves like the top of the food chain, right? But we still have like apex predators in the world. That's kind of the same situation when it comes to the actual death worms and whatnot. But, with the trials and tribulations they have, their weapons, and they have to carve out the worm's heart. So, after they get their weapon and their Jiraiyanite gem and the Monko and the Death Worm, they come back to the Jiraiyan homeworld, and obviously everyone's excited because it's like, oh yay, you're an adult now, congratulations, that whole sort of thing. But here's the thing with Alva, she's of royalty, so there's a special process. So when she comes back, to her kingdom, basically they have this giant T-Rex statue, and I call it a T-Rex statue, but it's obviously going to not look like an exact replica of a T-Rex. Basically how, some of us believe that we came from monkeys. Jiraians believe that they came, Jiraians believe that they came from dinosaurs. So, it's just a simple explanation of why it looks like a T-Rex, and I'm going to draw it when I get to it, but basically the jaws of this T-Rex opens up, and inside there's a bunch of like shredders and whatnot, right? So then Alva drops the heart of the death worm inside the thing. It grinds it up into some sort of juice. And keep in mind, the death worms also have a poison in there that poisons its prey and whatnot. So not only is it infused with blood, but it's infused with its poison. But then they get a bunch of other like Jiraiyan sorcerers and scientists and whatnot, and they infuse it with different types of other chemicals, and thus that creates the royal blood. And obviously, with her being the daughter of the king, a bowl, like it pours out into a bowl. She then sips the bowl and now is infused with the royal blood. Just think of it as like steroids. It puts her like she was already at the top because nepotism and whatnot, but now with the royal blood, she's at the very, very top. And obviously with nepotism and her being the daughter of the king, she is placed as the head general of the Jiraians. Now, keep in mind, the Jiraians obviously have a great respect for their king, but, later on in the story, there's going to be some things happening to where it kind of gets knocked down, you know what I'm saying? It gets knocked down a peg. But I'll explain that when I get to it. So, with her being the head general of the, Jiraiyan army and whatnot, thus comes the Great War. Oh, joy, my favorite. But basically her role plays is that she is the ally of the Xerxians, thus she gets herself introduced to Osiris and Anubis and Set and whatnot. So she's allies with them, and that kind of helps establish a base foundation for their like friendship, I guess. Obviously they're allies, and with Jiraiyan culture, they rather compared to like how the Xerxians are, whether they want to spread their influence throughout the universe, the Jiraians want to conquer and destroy. It's like, obviously they have different planets where they make their hunting grounds, but that's how they train. And I'm going to explain that in a minute. But basically, think of the Xerxians, but they are like literally on steroids. They do not care about spreading their influence, more or less just destroying things because they're really good at it. So when it comes to a war, get someone who's really good at destroying things, right? The Jiraians. So the Jiraians were a perfect fit, and thus that's how they formed their alliance. Sorry, I knocked over my deodorant. But that's kind of how that relationship began. And obviously, the rest. David and Andreas get involved, and I'm going to explain, that basically, Andreas and David go their separate ways. Andreas goes with the Jury Rays and Elementals. David goes with the Xerxians and the Jiraians, and I already explained what happens between them two in their own separate videos. So obviously David meets up with Alva, and to say that she insults him would be an understatement, because keep in mind, she is giant. She is a ginormous woman. She's almost like 9 feet tall. So she sees this 6 foot hairless monkey standing in front of her, and she obviously laughs in his face, right? Because, first of all, like everyone gassing her up, and her being the daughter of the king, kind of, put it into her head that she is she is planet Mercury. She is complete and utter hot doo-doo. You know what I'm saying? So, other than that, it just more or less boils down to, haha, you're a stupid hairless monkey. And then, she takes him in as her prisoner, and then she basically messed with David in a very messed up way where she drops him off on like planet Sauvage, or the Savage planet. As I explained in my David video, that's just a planet full of giant like dinosaur creatures, and David fights and survives in there. And, with Alva seeing this, her like modicum of respect for him kind of goes up a bit. Not much, but it's more or less now kind of instigating him to show her like his true power and whatnot. You get what I'm saying? It's like, I know you can do more. It's like poking the bear, right? It's more like, I saw what you did to that dinosaur creature. Do it again, but like cooler, So that's kind of where their basis and their foundation of their relationship is right now. So obviously with the Great War happening, her relationship with the elementals and the Jiraiya aren't really good. So obviously when Himawari comes around, she does not like her. She sees her as a very spoiled princess who, doesn't know anything about fighting. But little does she know, she knows a lot about fighting thanks to her grandfather. But, we'll get to that when we get to that. So with all that being said, with the Great War comes the big sea man himself, Cinderella-Man. As I explained in his video, basically he was created thanks to King Adam. So when, Cinderella-Man comes into the fight, everyone stops and drops their weapons and is like, let's take out this guy, then we can get back to fighting. I already explained this in my other videos, but, basically, in a way, it's very funny because, when it's all said and done, and King Adam, with the Jiraiyians and their culture and whatnot, it basically boils down to, if I fight you, either I'm gonna die or you do. And it's more or less just like, he's already feeling shameful because he survived a dogfight between the Jiraiya and, his fleet and whatnot, and he was taken on Cinderella-Man's planet, and then he fled the planet when it was about to be destroyed, so he felt shameful about that. But then when he gets like absolutely dog-walked by Cinderella-Man, he feels extra shameful. So, then when it's all said and done, after everyone tries to like fight Cinderella-Man but gets like pounded into the dirt, Cinderella-Man turns himself in, quote unquote. He surrenders because he recognizes Andreas's power, and he's like, I see a lot of potential in you, and I'm gonna save you for later. I know you're not at full strength yet, so get ready. And he locks himself away. And with all that is being said and done, everyone's like, holy cow, where did that come from? There's no way that creature is like born and made, or born, it had to be made. And then obviously King Adam's just kind of sitting in the corner, like thinking to himself as sweat is just pouring down his face and whatnot. But as he feels shame, he at least has some sort of honor in him to come clean with the fact that he is the one who by proxy created the Cinderella-Man, because he called that distress signal out and brought that fleet to them, thus destroyed the planet, thus created the Cinderella-Man. So when they heard that, the High Castle just took all of his titles away. His kingship, his royal, like all of his weapons and his whatnot, like everything, his titles, all that kingdom stripped away. And he was basically told to kick rocks. And so, yep, he's exiled. Oh no, what a shame. This crown looks kind of lonely though. Let's clean that off. Here you go, sweetheart. Right. There you go. There you go. That's right. Queen Alva. Alva's now queen. So, when it's all said and done, with her father being exiled, she is saddened by this. So she wants to at least uphold the title of queen, and wants to show her people that, although her father unfortunately wasn't strong enough to continue, she could continue in his honor. So, as I mentioned before, the Jiraians are a very brutish race. They're very powerful and very strong. However, they're very progressive in a way because in a techno, in a technical sense, if you are also very strong and like destroying things, they're gonna like you. It didn't matter if you looked black, white, green, gray, silver for some reason. Like if you like destroy things and you were strong enough to at least wrestle with one, they're gonna like you. They're like, me destroy you, destroy too. Ooh, he liked you. So in a weird way, the Giants were kind of progressive in a sense that, especially when David came around and like showed his like strength in the fight with Cinderella-Man, they were like, oh, this guy's pretty good. We like this guy. And they were like, what is your name, little hairless white monkey man? And David's like, Washington, and they were like, Washington. The Giants were like hyping him up and whatnot. So in a weird way, this is kind of David's like first interaction with him using his powers, and it comes out with positive like repercussions and whatnot, right? Because back on Earth, metahumans were hated. So this is kind of like his first like moment where like a different species, albeit kind of weird, he accepted it with open arms. He was like, yeah, I Washington. Yeah, like he came along with it, right? And with, Alva being the queen now, she, basically put David in charge of the Jiraians. And the Jiraians were like, awesome, we have a strong leader. We will follow David Washington. So with her father exiled and her saddened by that, that also made her very angry. And thus, with Cinderella-Man imprisoned, they couldn't really continue the war because they were afraid if he got out, he would just destroy things again. So they were trying to figure out a way to eliminate Cinderella-Man, and thus they can continue with their conflicts, right? So they couldn't really find a way, but this gave Alva and David and everyone else time to kind of not only settle down, but also allow themselves to train for the next coming fight and war. So basically everyone kind of trained together to try to figure out how they can take out Cinderella-Man and whatnot. So this was kind of their little training arc, and especially with David and Alva kind of forming a little more relation, more of a friendship, because Alva sees how strong David is and vice versa. And, David, sees how much of a capable and strong leader that she is, and, grows respect for her and whatnot. So, with all that said and done, it's kind of happy days for everyone because everyone's kind of building their friendship and building foundations with one another. And then the news breaks to Cinderella-Man. And I know what you guys are thinking, Afro, I thought Cinderella-Man kind of already knew what he was doing. And in a sense, yes and no. So basically, when Cinderella-Man was created, think of Cinderella-Man and King Null as two different beings, right? So Cinderella-Man, when he was brought back to life, knew he had to wreck house, but he didn't know why he felt so much anger and hatred in his heart. But when the news spread down to him, that fire reignited, and it was hellish, because as soon as he heard that basically King Adam, the one that he dog walked and kind of let live as he was walking away, he could have killed him and at least had some sort of resolve, but he didn't. And now with him exiled on unknown location, this kind of gave him that more resolve to get out of the prison and cause more havoc, right? So basically now King Adam better be looking over his shoulder, because now Cinderella-Man's after him again. And obviously with Cinderella-Man breaking out, a lot more travesty happens. I mentioned this in my Himawari and Jack video, but basically, it just wrecks house. A lot of people unfortunately die in the crossfire. However, with Alva's pride and hubris, she thought that she could basically go up against Cinderella-Man, and with good reason. I mean, she's the daughter of the king, and she has the royal blood running through her, right? So she's stronger than the average Jiraiyan, but not stronger than Cinderella-Man. So basically, I'm going to display a scene for you guys right quick, right? So Alva, at this point, is beaten and bloodied and bruised thanks to the Cinderella-Man, because he is just that strong. But she goes for the one thing that every Jiraiyan knows, even before they walk, even before they crawl, to bite. So she kicks into her instincts and she goes for a bite. However, she is not strong enough or not quick enough. And basically, Cinderella-Man knocks her teeth out. This is her mouth. This is his fist. It's not going to be how it's going to be portrayed as I draw it, but basically just think of it like this. Ugh. You just imagine little teeth fragments kind of falling out there. And keep in mind, he doesn't knock all of her teeth out, but it's like the front, like, corner, you know what I'm saying? Like her front molars all out on the ground. So also in Jiraiyan culture, I know I'm going back to Jiraiyan culture, but just hear me out. Basically, with the teeth, it's kind of like a way to display and try to attract mates, right? You know how like lions have their luscious mane or peacocks have their feathers. It's a way to attract mates. So not only was she basically in Jiraiyan culture, basically deteethed, de-toothed, I guess you can say, but basically her beauty was taken away in a sense. So, you know, as she's kind of on her knees in pain, oh, the adrenaline's running through her, but she still feels blood gushing from her mouth and she sees her teeth on the floor. She's on her knees and, you know, she's just like in so much pain, but then she hears a faint sound. Cinderella-Man, Cinderella-Man. And then she looks around her and it's her people. Her people are surrounding her, but instead of fighting and protecting her queen, they're cheering him on. I know. And they're like, in the story I had mentioned, I haven't mentioned this yet, but basically in the story, Cinderella-Man has this chant and it, you know, I'm going to try my best, you know, stick with me here. Ahmed. And basically it's, you know, he repeats that because back when he was King Noel, that was the chant that they would shout when they, you know, gave birth or when the child is born. And basically Ahmed is, you know, their goddess of fertility. So in a way, it's basically them chanting for the birth of Cinderella-Man. And it's very heartbreaking because at this point, not only does she lose her father with him being exiled, but she lost the respect of her people and she lost her beauty and she's basically broken down to nothing. So, you know, obviously with her being surrounded by so much gas throughout her life, she thought she was all that. And she was very arrogant. She was very cocky. So after being humbled at this very moment, she realizes that she is bested. She can't go further more. She can't fight back. She realizes that Cinderella-Man truly is stronger than her. So she opens her arms and she's ready to die. However, David comes and saves her. That's right. So, you know, obviously with Jiraiyan culture, it's either I die or you do. But David, obviously seeing her more than that, saves her. Alva is not happy with David, but you know, obviously they come around to it later on in the and they talk about it in the Bad Company saga. And you know, with her getting her teeth knocked out and on the floor, it's obviously a very sad and emotional scene. But with Cinderella, man, I know it's a little like tone deaf or whatnot, but he doesn't say anything. He just looks at his fist and like he just starts picking out like loose Jiraiyan teeth in his fist. And so it's, you know, it's gonna be like funny when I draw it out. But basically at this point, Alva has reached rock bottom. She doesn't have the respect of her people anymore. She lost the only thing that was considered beautiful in the eyes of the Jiraiyan people. And she doesn't have her kingdom. She doesn't have anything. You know, her kingdom's been destroyed. Her people see her as weak now, unfortunately. And so, you know, she's basically at rock bottom and is depressed. That's when Himawari comes in. And as I explained this in my last video, Himawari kind of comforts her and reminds her that she is more than what the Jiraiyan culture sees her as. Obviously, you know, it's going to be hard to kind of get to her at first because she was groomed and kind of brought up into that culture. So you can't just say to someone, oh, don't do this or don't think like this when they've been told that their entire lives. So in a weird sense, this kind of helps build their foundation of their friendship and allows them to kind of, you know, at least establish a relationship between the Jiraians and the Jiraiya. Because at this point in the story, it was like, all right, we have to get rid of Cinderella-Man because he has caused too much damage. And at this point, I don't even think we'll have enough resources to continue the fight in the war. So they at least call for a peace treaty, right? So at this point, you know, uh, Himawari gets her best like dentist and scientists and whatnot to help reconstruct Alva's teeth, but kind of give her new, better molars. So now with her kind of upgraded with her teeth wise, she is now back in at least has some sort of confidence. She's kind of afraid, but she realizes that she doesn't really have anything left to lose, so she's at least willing to go in guns blazing, and if she dies, she at least dies with honor, right? So then the final fight happens. I already tell you all what the story is. Cinderella-Man and Andreas, fight on this dying planet, and then all the survivors and main characters leave. Jack and Rose go, or Himawari and Osiris go to planet Earth, and then David and Alva go off course because they're interrupted by another commanding ship and brings them to Battle Nexus. And as I mentioned in my last video, I'm still kind of writing some things out, but basically the Battle Nexus is just a giant slave gladiator planet that is run by the Zircons. And the Zircons are just tiny humanoid beings that work inside of giant mech suits, or human-sized mech suits, I should say. But basically David and Alva rescue, save the planet. They grow their relationship. They kind of talk about their problems and how David tries to comfort Alva, but then Alva's like, you don't know anything. You don't know what it's like to be betrayed by your own people and whatnot. And, if you know David's story, he does. He does know what it's like to be betrayed and, told to basically rot by his own people. Sure, he may not be exactly like them, but he looks like them. But, obviously they kind of have a common ground that they understand each other, that, their people abandoned them and told them, go away. We don't want you. We don't need you anymore. Or we never liked you in the first place. So that kind of helps establish their relationship with one another. And obviously, Jack and Rose come back, rescue David and Alva, and kind of establish the Battle Nexus as a property of planet Earth. That way they can kind of trade resources, but that's a whole different story. So then brought them back to Earth, and that's when, David and Alva become founding members of the Immortals. They fight stars, and that's kind of where I'm at this point. So what's her powers and abilities? You already know, the rules, so do I. Super strength, moderate speed. She's not as fast as David or Osiris or Himawari, but she is comparable. She is very comparable, and she's able to keep up with them somewhat. Her intelligence, not to say that she's stupid, but she's not really building machines and whatnot, right? However, she is very, very high in battle intelligence. She's very, she's at least knows, with her being the general of the Jiraiyan army, she knows at least really good battle tactics rather than just going in headstrong, right? So, she doesn't really have a lot of abilities compared to her other, compatriots and whatnot, but what she lacks in abilities, she makes up in her arsenal and weaponry. So with Alva, she has the Titan Breaker Hammer, and this Titan Breaker Hammer it's named that for a reason. This thing can topple mountains, and she's just swinging it willy-nilly like it's nothing, like it's just another day in the office, right? However, there's a cool thing about the Titan Hammer is that if she twists the handles on the thing and closes it down, a handle pops up. She grabs it and it transforms into a gun. Not only turns into a Gatling gun, but also has a mode that switches into a bazooka. So she has that, and also on the hammer itself and the gun, it has a nice little spear-tipped blade on there so she can stab and slice and whatnot. So she has that, and she also has different types of other Jiraiyan weaponry, the Jiraiyan pistol, Jiraiyan shotgun. I actually have it written down in my old notebook somewhere, but basically what she lacks in powers and abilities, she makes up for in her arsenal. And that she also has, the royal blood, so that kind of, coursing through her veins, so that allows her to basically, it's the next step up from what her base form is. Allows her to increase speed, increase strength, durability, blah blah blah. So that's she has access to that, and also she has this mech suit that like it forms like a collar around her, but basically it's like two snapping jaws that form like a helmet almost. She already wears a helmet, but it's like a bigger helmet. But basically, these two claws that sit around her like collarbone area fire out, or it chomps down on someone. And have you guys seen videos of like alligator death rolls? Alva has the ability to do that too. She could just spin really fast. So basically, think of it as like a circular saw. Whenever she like jumps and like she tries to like go through a hole, she can just turn like the spikes on and she can spin really fast and like dig herself out a hole, right? Or it can like sap on someone's arm and it shave it circular, it comes off, right? So she's very brutal when it comes to her fighting, and along with fighting, she's a very 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 strong fighter. Although she's not as like you know mixed martial arts and whatnot compared to like Jun or Himawari or Osiris, even in a way. She still is able to keep up with them somewhat. She's very brutal and, almost like a pit fighter in a way. She's a lot more grapple like and whatnot, with her being like an alligator dinosaur, makes sense. But yeah, that's kind of where she is like power scaling wise. She's very strong and indubitably she's physically one of the strongest characters in the Chronicle universe. So that's where she is power wise. What is she morally wise? So obviously Alva is a very interesting character because she obviously later on she becomes better, but she is just the worst when you meet her. It's like night and day when you see her like then and now, because back then she was a lot more arrogant, she was a lot more cocky, she had so much gas blowing up her skirt that it was misty down there. Whew, whew, you know what I'm saying? But basically it was night and day, and how she came across, she saw others beneath her, even her own allies. She thought that she was better, and she sometimes she would even belittle Anubis and like Anubis and Osiris because she thought she was that. Obviously this kind of made a rivalry between her and Anubis. Osiris didn't really pay mind to it. He kind of was like, yeah, you're pretty cool and whatnot, but it wasn't like he was offended by it or anything. He kind of just, he had a bunch of other problems he was dealing with. So Alva being who she was, he kind of just let it slide. And obviously Alva felt bad about this later on, but Jack said like, I didn't, it was all right. I didn't really care about it. And you're my friend now. So, it doesn't really matter to me. But with how she comes about later on, she realizes that there's more to life than just fighting and war and whatnot, and she becomes better and becomes a hero. Especially when it comes at the later half of the because it takes a while. It takes a while to her to understand that she is more than what the Jiraians or the Jiraiyan culture makes her out to be. So later on in the story, she becomes more of a hero to the slaves on Battle Nexus. And but that's where she is morally. What does this character mean to me? This character means a lot to me because obviously with her being the better half of David, David's the better half of her. She and him have more of a unique bond because in a sense, both of them were rejected because of whether they were just different or they were too weak to fight for their people and whatnot. So in a weird sense, both of them were rejected by the race that they were born into and look like them, but since due to certain circumstances, they were thrown out or spat out like a piece of chewed gum, and that kind of helps bond and form their relationship. And later on, obviously, with Alva, becoming a mother to David's child, it's kind of hard for her because she never really had a mother in her life to teach her that sort of stuff. However, she is surrounded by friends and her husband to kind of guide her on the right path and teach her what she needs to be taught, right? So with all that being said, Alva is a very unique character because, she's basically two sides of this same coin, arrogant queen to humbled hero slash mother. And I really like this character. I like how she's drawn, and I really like how unique she is because, in a sense, she is a giant dinosaur woman. But she, is a she's basically through the Jiraiyan armies. She is known as a tyrant, and a tyrant is basically a T Rex, Jiraiyan, and I have a bunch of other Jiraians. The smaller ones are known as Rippers, which are basically raptors, and then you have the Hellflyers, which are basically the like pterodactyls and whatnot. I'm gonna have pictures on what the Jiraians look like, but that's kind of what their biology is that they're just giant crocodile dinosaur people. But Alva is a very unique character because her moments really shine out to me because she started off like very arrogant and very like condescending towards others, but after she gets humbled, she realizes that this is the end for her. But her friends and even the ones that she would consider enemies stepped up for her. The one Himawari stepped up for her, even though politically they were enemies, and even during war they were enemies. She stood up for her and even comforted her at her lowest moment. David, a creature that she saw and saw as weak because, look at him compared to her, showed her that there's more to what meets the eye. However, with him having this strength and having this power, he never used it to harm others, but instead he used it to protect and, help them keep them safe and, provide them hope with a better future. So, with all that being said, Alva is just really interesting to me because with her circumstances and how everything that has happened to her, she grows. She's a plant. She starts off as this tiny seedling, and she grows into this big tree. And I'm really excited because I'm gonna share the two quick things before I leave off with you guys. But basically, in the story, it happens in a bad company, not in the Battle Nexus, but later on when she has her own side story with David and whatnot, they go on their own little adventures. But basically, there's a Jiraiyan that appears later on in the story, and in a mocking kind of way is like, "Who are you without your kingdom, Alva? Who are you, my queen?" And then she looks towards the Jiraiya and is like, "I'm a goddamn Washington." And then she puts on her mask and fights this Jiraiyan. And then there's another part where they fight stars as the immortals, blah, 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 blah. But then basically this star turns into a giant. So think of Earth like this, right? The Jiraiyan, or the star is about to, this is his fist compared to the Earth. Alva stops this, giant fist with her multiple hands because she reached her Cinderella form. I'm going to draw that out too. But basically, she's in her Cinderella form and she stopped this giant fist. She's about to be crushed though. However, she thinks about all the times and the memories that she spent with her friends and David. And, even the people of Earth kind of inspired her to be better and showed that, she was truly a hero to these people. So, as she's about to get crushed, she remembers the birth of Dobreus and how, she obviously was fatigued because she gave birth to Dobreus, but she saw David, holding Dobreus next to her, and she thought of, the life that she wanted to spend together with them. But David and Alva were kind of having complications and whatnot, and they kind of had a divorce, and they weren't really seeing eye to eye at this point. Her still being in her old ways kind of separated them emotionally and physically. So with her thinking of David and Dobreus together with her, realized that she needs to be more than truly what she is. Sure, she's a Jiraiyan, but she could be more than that. She could be a hero. She could be a mother. She can be a wife. So with her words, she says to herself, "I can't let down my friends. I can't let down these people. I can't let down David. I can't let down Dobreus. I can't let my boys down." So she gains the strength and she yells at the top of her lungs, "I won't let my boys down." And she punches the fist that's about to collide with Earth, and the giant star explodes. So, with that being said, just kind of thinking that in the back of my mind, it's such a unique scenario because it when you think about her as she starts off, younger Alva would never say this. But obviously, as time goes on, as she goes through a lot more, she grows and she becomes better. So, with all that being said, Alva's just a very unique character because I really like how she turns out and how she kind of grows throughout the story. And I'm really excited to draw her out and kind of get it introduced to y'all and whatnot. I already have a picture of what she looks like, but that's an older Alva, and I also have a picture of a younger Alva, but they don't really look much different. Obviously, older Alva has a lot more long flowing hair. But, with all that being said, I'm really excited to how these videos are turning out. I'm really liking how this is going forward. Again, it's a very small but very good process. I'm really like how things are turning out. And, again, I'm still have a lot more projects and I have a lot more free time on my hands. So you're going to be seeing a lot more posts. Again, just kind of be patient with me, and I'm, gathering some things together and I'm really excited how things are turning out. But with all that being said, I'm really liking, how these videos are coming across. Again, no script, kind of just going off the back of my head, how this is all forming around me. Some things may change, others may stay the same, but those two moments are definitely staying because I, liked the progress and how her dialogue is and how she speaks about her loved ones. But with all that being said, I'm really happy with how these are turning out. And I just want to say I love you guys. You guys are amazing. Even the ones that aren't watching or like commenting or whatnot, I know you guys are there. And it doesn't matter to me whether you watch or whatnot. As long as I know you guys are there looking at me, it's all that matters to me. But with all that being said, I just want to say that I hope you guys have a happy holidays. Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah. Doesn't matter. I still love you all the same. And I have been Afromandius. Thank you all so much for watching. And stay fresh and stay frosty, Afrolytes. And I'll catch y'all next time.